Okay, so I have a lot of people come at me now because they say that you're a heretic because you say Jesus already came back. Okay, but why don't you believe he came back? That's my question to them. So why don't you think he came back? I believe Jesus, with the absence of full proof that all the things from the book of Revelation came true, all the prophecies from the Old Testament came true. And you know what I would attribute that to? Faith. I believe what Jesus said, and I think that's the one thing I'm positive of right now. The stuff in Daniel, the stuff that Jesus said in Matthew 24, that was about that time. That was about the time he was there. The people he were talking to was the people he was talking to. So I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. But what about the church fathers? What about this? What about that? What about this other thing? I can't prove anything to you, just like you can't prove anything to me, just like you can't prove anything to non-believers, right? If a non-believer said, prove this to me, you couldn't do it. And what would you fall back on? I believe God. I believe the promises of God. It's never been something you could prove. It's evident. I'm not saying my faith is blind, but I would say that I got evidence to back up my faith. But what I would say is, if you need me to prove to you that the heavens fell, you need me to prove that the Mount of Olives was split, you need me to prove to you all the things about Sukkot and the Feast of Tabernacles and all that stuff, I can tell you that I can't prove it to you. I can show you evidence of things that Jesus said were going to happen, and the rest is faith. So your lack of faith is not my problem at this point. That's what I would tell them. I have enough to believe. I believe Jesus' words, and I said that's why I always come back to when Jesus said, verily I tell you that all these things will come to pass before this generation passes away. And it's not the generation he's talking about in 2,000 years from now. It would have no meaning to those people if he said that, right? They asked him when the temple would be destroyed. He said it would be destroyed in their generation, and it was. So all the other things that he said were going to happen, I believe happened because Jesus tells the truth. He's not a liar. And you make him a false prophet when you say, oh, well, he didn't mean that. Well, he did. He did, and like I said, I believe it happened. So when you say it didn't, like I said, that's not really my problem now. Okay, so if the spirit of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, your God, the one you claim to believe in, has prophesied lots of things. He's made lots of promises to you. How ignorant of you if you don't even try to look back of what he said. This is what the modern brick and mortar churches do. Okay, so we have Jesus 2,000 years ago, and we have us 2,000 years later, and we're not going to look in the middle of this. He said things were going to happen in the future. It could not have been in the last 2,000 years. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to trust some guy who says it hasn't happened. So I think that's what it really rests on, is the fact that some people will say that I'm going to believe the guy who says it hasn't happened yet. And I'm the guy who says, I don't trust that guy. I'm going to look myself to find out if the things that God said were going to happen, happened. The more I've done that, the more I've actually learned things that say, dang, this stuff might have already happened. You know what I'm saying? So I'm the one who says, I believe Jesus over this guy. And if that guy told you Jesus came back, you would believe it. So who do you believe and who do you not believe? You don't have to believe me, but I'm saying if you believe him, you have an onus on yourself to go look at what he said and maybe if it came true or not. Maybe you've been lied to. I would say, I know you've been lied to.